Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Still Loading podcast. I am delighted today to introduce you to Monika Holland. Monika is a startup advisor to those early stage startups that are almost like in their inception, in their infancy, and she guides them through the product market fit. She helps them think about their strategy, and she's just an all-round wizard to help early stage startups. We actually met online on LinkedIn, and I love that about LinkedIn, that you can meet people who are really passionate about what you do. And what we loved about when we chatted and caught up with each other is, in a sense, Monika looks after the bit just before me in the startup scene. So I tend to focus more on the B2C level, scale ups and stuff with leadership development. So it was just amazing to think of it as a continuum. But Monika, please share a little bit about yourself and about what you do.
Hi, yes, absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and chat with you. Definitely, our initial conversation was lovely, and I remember us talking about startups as referred to growing up a human, right? So from the very baby steps to kind of going into teenage years and adolescence, and it's amazing to space to be in. And we share this passion and about startups that we have together. So thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. I'd love to know a little bit about what have you been working on recently with your clients?
So normally what we work on is go-to-market strategies and acquiring first customers. So my personal and professional background is in sales. I've been in sales for the last 20 years, working in big corporates and startup environments, bootstrapped and well-funded, all different startup environments that I happen to work in. And then I said, instead of just helping one company, I can actually help a couple at the same time. And and about 2.5 years ago, I made my mission to help startups go through the very tricky product market fit stage and kind of sprint from in between seed and A stages. And again, these are perhaps the most trickiest stages that a startup goes through. It's like starting to stand up and take the first step. So acquiring first customers, positioning in the market, understanding who your real customers are, the early adopters and then growth customers, redefining the value proposition and kind of putting yourself out there. And most of the time, what I see is the technical founders that need most help. So you have these talented people who are so passionate about the problem that they solve and the product that they build. They are natural builders, solution finders. And now that they have built a solution to the problem that they're passionate about, they find themselves actually having to sell it too. Yep. And that is not always a natural, that doesn't come natural to them all the time. Because of their background, right? And that is where I come in and help them find those first customers. Obviously, in product market fit is the founder that needs to acquire those customers first. And but it's easier when you have help from outside. That you shorten the experimentation stage and go with more certain direction that you want to take your the products and services to the market. And it's we say that we manage to shorten the time to market and extend the runaway, avoiding all the errors that normally come while you're trying to get really good at sales. So this is normally what we work on.
Lovely. And I couldn't agree more. I've experienced this firsthand. It's like, I'm going to go back in time now slightly, but when I was a teacher, this is how I started in the whole startup scene. I was a teacher, I was fascinated by ed tech, and everyone kept telling me it was the future and basically we wouldn't need teachers anymore. So in the evening and weekends, I went to sort of every sort of ed tech startup thing I could in London, got really interested in the startup scene in London, and met loads of people who'd made great products, but then they were like, oh, like, what do you think of it? And I was like, have you spoken to a teacher about this? And they were like, no. And I was like, you probably should, right? Like, so I became an advisor to these ed tech startups, and that's kind of how my journey began. And I just noticed that they had built something that was brilliant, but hadn't even thought to speak to a key stakeholder. If you're doing anything in education, like one of the gatekeepers is a teacher or the education system in general. The other one would be parents, wouldn't it? But also that they were super excited about the technicalities and the detail about their product, that I almost felt like I was digesting a manual, like an actual, like an instruction manual. And I was like, okay. And the funny thing is, they're super excited about it. You are excited too, but a lot of it's going over your head unless you've got that level of technical ability. And the thing is with sales, similarly to teaching, you have to be able to convey what you're doing simply to another person and hopefully get them to be on board, but not alienate them. And I think that balance is really important. You're educating, but kind of, that's what sales and education is different, I think. You're educating sometimes about a product or service, but it can't feel like you're teaching, because nobody wants to feel like that when they're an adult.
Absolutely. I can definitely see that. So funny that you refer to that, the whole sales process, right? How we see the act of engaging with potential customers. How do we do that? And for a natural salesperson, that's very easy. But for someone who has never been exposed to that process, it can be quite daunting. What do I say? How do I say it? What is more important? How do I ask those right questions? How do I understand if this is actually my customer or not? And it seems simple, but if you don't come with a sales background or you haven't done it in the past, it can be really tricky, especially in product market fit, where everything is still in the making. I call it building a plane while flying its stage, because that's exactly what you're doing. Your product is still, not ready, perhaps in beta. Your customers are still not quite defined. Sometimes it seems that you can service a wide range of customers, but just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. So there's a whole business piece in there, right? So how does it fit? What are the timings, and how to reach the market, how to position? There's so many daunting questions, and tying it into leadership, I think, is a fascinating space to be in, to witness these talented people become leaders in their space. They come from, I have an amazing idea, I think I have a solution, let me create that solution into actually becoming a profitable business, potentially in a short amount of time, where they add people exponentially if all goes well. And now they're in a C-level position where, instead of, I always make this analogy, they start they start the business because they love making the bread, but at the end they end up managing a business that was not necessarily their initial idea. And now they're CEOs, they're dealing with people, hiring, they're dealing with customers, onboarding, churning, they're dealing with administrational things, right? And all they want to do is go back to baking the bread and not managing 30 different bakeries, right? So it's completely different. And how important it is to surround yourself with people that have different skill sets than yourself, that will help you manage the business and take the business to the next step, right? and I think you probably see it quite a lot as well. The leaders that go from I'm individual solving a problem to actually building a business and managing a business, driving the business of a multi-billion companies, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. There was a brilliant podcast episode I listened to about the MailChimp, about the founder of MailChimp. And he had a moment like that where he honestly just realized he needed leadership development training, that something had happened and basically they kind of miscommunicated something which caused widespread panic. I think it was like they sent an email out to people saying, please can you come and attend an all hands, like, but with no context. And so by this point of MailChimp, it was big enough that you couldn't almost rely on word of mouth for people to know what was going on. It wasn't it wasn't just the close-knit group, and everyone came to that Q&A, like that all hands meeting, kind of like, what's going on, what's wrong with the company? Because ultimately, you know, humans get worried and they jump to kind of a fear-based response. And he realized, and he says in the podcast that someone in the leadership team actually came into his office. He's sitting there after this meeting that went terribly and said, you need leadership development training. And he went off for a couple of months and got some leadership development training. And I was like, wow, like it took like, and MailChimp's huge. We've all heard of MailChimp, and it took him really completely messing up that interview and that all hands, and it made him realize he had to. So it's funny because there's that dichotomy of like the pressures of developing a business, the pressures of developing product market fit, like with your help and so on, but then also developing yourself as a leader to be able to get people behind your idea, your product market fit, to then take it to the next level. Because as you said, you can continue to bake. You can absolutely continue to bake and just bake in your oven. But if you actually want to grow a business, you're going to have to do different things and invest in your own development to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Yes. It's fascinating story, isn't it? And there's so many of them out there. Think of Calendly, think of Dropbox, obviously. It's amazing how, you know, product-led growth is every founder's dream, but the reality is it doesn't happen that often. And leadership is part of that process. If people is where the strength is of every business. So if the leader is humble enough that understand where the shortcomings are and where the gaps are, and can fill with the right resources and into the team, I think, you know, that's a winning formula at the end of the day. But a lot of them end up trying to manage everything themselves, and that's where the difficulties and challenges start.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'd love to turn it slightly to you, and I'd love to know a leader that has influenced you in your life.
I'll tell you a little secret. So it's daunting and kind of inspiring at the same time to think that I have seen more leaders that I wouldn't want to be than the ones that I would want to be. And I hear a lot of people, you know, when you listen to podcasts and just, you know, meet people and talk about, you know, who inspired you? And everyone has that person who really mentored them or took them under their wing. I didn't have one. And I'm thinking, you know, it's really interesting. And I take it as a strength. I don't take it as unfortunate. I take it as fortunate because I've seen firsthand what I'm not one, you know, the leader I don't want to become before. And when I saw that leader that I want to become, I knew it right away. I'll tell you who it was. I actually told her years ago, so she's well aware. It was years ago when I was in the United States. I was on career training program in the States. I was still working in hotel business, and it was a leadership position where I was shadowing a general manager. Her name is Dionne Dabney Williams. And I could see how she moves around every single day. And I was like, she is really the person, the leader I would want to become in the future. And what was special about the way she moved in her leadership position, it was the people, how she managed to remember every single detail personally about every person that was on her team. Every challenge that they were going through, she would ask them about that challenge in the morning. So how is it going, right? Just 2 minutes, 2 seconds here, 2 minutes there. But everyone felt so involved, and she was able to give enough attention to the individual and as a team, and actually make them all work in the same direction, the direction she wanted them to lead, because they had such high opinion, respect, and towards her that it was just natural to follow her. And she did that so gracefully. I was just in awe, and I was like, I have so much to learn in this space, and just, watch. But it was, again, besides the knowledge that she had, besides, the competence that was so apparent, it was, at the end, it was all about the people. It was all about how she treated others that made it all work. And it came to me as I was thinking about the servant leadership. So I took some courses at Cornell University about leadership, because after that, I wanted to deep dive into that, because I felt like it was fascinating and something that I needed to strengthen for myself personally. And Cornell program was amazing, and the professors there were very knowledgeable and were able to convey all the subjects very clearly. And I was thinking about the servant leadership. It was all, when you talk about servant leadership, it's all about the people. It's about your end customer, your team, and serving them. It's not, in a leadership position, it's not about you. It's about serving your people who will take care of your customers at the end. And it all trickles down to that. And it's just fascinating. Once I saw it in real life, I could recognize it right away. It was great. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and servant leadership is a big topic, and I've actually it's actually one episode from last season. I spoke to Shane Wallace, who he runs a leadership development practice in Calgary in Canada, and he explains a lot about servant leadership. And I love the model because it really puts, as you say, people at the forefront. And for me, I think sometimes with startups, I think that is something that could benefit a lot of startups to just realize that the model you should think about for leadership is servant leadership rather than positional leadership, which is where it's title or rank and I've seen this, I don't know if you've seen this in startups as well as scale-ups, it's how long have you been there? Are you one of the original cohort of people that were there in the pizza, eating pizzas at midnight, because that can also form a little bit of a cliquey thing. And I've seen that happen, and you almost have to be like, if you want to scale your business, you're going to have to rethink your little cliquey model here. Like, you need to work a way to make your values spread in a meaningful way across the organization and build culture.
Absolutely. I've seen it in the making, and perhaps it's something, also putting in that bucket what not to do as a leader is creating those silos, right? But it comes so naturally, sometimes we don't even realize it. And I think it takes self-awareness and putting that ego to the part to realize that this is probably not the way to go, that if I want to build a business, if I want to make a difference, if I want to leave a legacy, really, and drive with vision and with, and completing a mission, because every founder, starts a business, kind of has a vision and a mission that they want to complete. If it takes a lot of work and self-work on it, inner work, to understand you can't do this alone. At the beginning, because it is, when you start, is just yourself and perhaps your co-founder and a small team, and before you know it, you're a huge organization, and now you have to rely on other people to do the work, and they have to share the vision that you initially had to be able to complete the mission, to take it forward. And that takes a lot of inner work. Not every leader is ready for it, especially if it explodes quite fast. So evolving as an individual and as a professional and as a leader it goes in parallel with evolving as a business.
Yeah, I often reflect on Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg obviously experienced incredible success at such an early age, and my reflection is, because of the meteoric rise, and it was not necessarily at the same time as he could possibly have developed, right? If you think about, if you went from 0 to college adult in a week, which was effectively that exponential curve, you would think that was impossible as a human being. So you can almost see how some of the faux pas he made along the journey were because he just couldn't have had enough time to have then almost expanded into the different cultures. And I wonder, with scale ups and stuff, is that something that needs to be considered? Like, if you're looking for hyper growth, great, but then you better have a leadership team that's doing hyper growth personal development, like in the gym every day, doing like every single moment that they're trying to match, as you say, the trajectory of their organization.
That's the tricky part, isn't it? And it goes back to hiring the right people and surrounding yourself with the right talent around you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I love the point that you made about almost like who has anti-influenced you, because I think that is just as valuable. It's almost like, I don't want to do those things, I want to do these other things. So I think that's probably a really good question to ask people. Who hasn't influenced you, or who was your anti-influence? I'd love to know a little bit about something that has helped you on your own leadership development journey. Like, tell me and describe to me a situation that really helped you to develop.
That's a good question, actually. I think the first real leadership position for me was a hotel manager position in a boutique hotel in Florence. It was full immersion position that I wasn't ready for, and not from professional perspective, because I felt ready in terms of knowledge and experience that I had before, but it was, and I quickly realized that it was from the leadership position that I lacked the skills. I wasn't developed. I was 27. I was, but besides being a young leader, I did have enough awareness and humbleness to say, I'm pretty sure I need more work to be done internally as a person to become a great leader. And I did all my best, but after that experience, that is when I went to the States on a career training program, on this leadership program, because I wanted to become better at it. And I think, and it's, I can proudly say it is a winning attitude when it comes to growing as a professional and as a person, is being aware where your weaknesses are and work on it. So I've always looked for experiences and also educational content that I can learn from. And combining both gave me that opportunity to grow faster than just, learning it the hard way. I would say my first leadership position was probably something I could call it. I learned it the hard way, but I was, thankful for the opportunity given, and it was an amazing experience that helped me to realize I needed to grow. as a leader. And that's what I did. I looked for different outlets and educational content, different courses. That's where I took the Cornell course as well, to fill in the gaps that were clearly there.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable you had that level of self-awareness, and I wonder if some of that self-awareness was because you were also in like Florence, because one of the things I think about with self-awareness is the ability to reflect, back to yourself. And I always found, because I lived in Japan and I've lived in Italy and I've lived in Holland and Cuba. I'm sort of similar to you. I know you've lived in those different places, but it's really fascinating when you're out of your home environment. You are forced to look at yourself in new ways, and because nothing kind of makes sense because you're out of your environment. And I wonder if that also helped you to think about, oh, I have this bit where I need to develop, whereas maybe if you'd been in your hometown, it would have taken you longer to get there potentially.
True. Getting out of your comfort zone accelerates the growth. I come from Lithuania. I left home when I was 20. I had that hunger of experiencing the world around me that is different, out of the box. And I had a lot of courage to do that too. And for the last 20 years, that's what I did, traveling different countries and always following my career that took me to different countries and enjoying it. But again, like you said, rightfully, that you have to adapt to different environments because you are out of the box no matter what. There's no comfort zone in that case. And growth and success is your only option. I used to tell to myself, okay, I will do whatever it takes because I want to succeed in this position. And that's what I would do, whether it's, taking a course or reading a book or getting a mentor, anything that could help me grow faster and succeed, because I knew that failure is not an option. And again, even in that process, you end up failing because it is just part of the process. But the intention is to grow as fast as you can. And I would absolutely, any young entrepreneurs listening, I would absolutely suggest to just, leave the comfort zone, push yourself out there. Growth happens outside the box.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant advice. And also go travel. It's good fun. Go and travel.
Absolutely. Especially when you're in your 20s and you don't have, huge responsibilities, it's so much fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we live in such a brilliantly connected world. I mean, we're connected. I'm sitting in London, you're sitting in Rome. We can chat and stuff. I think it's just the opportunities are almost infinite at this point. So yeah, do that. I'd love to know a little bit from your experience working with clients. What are the trends in leadership that you're seeing working with your clients in your space?
That's a really good question. I think the change happened about 2-3 years ago when we all started working remotely, and we needed to find different ways of connecting and communicating to each other. And I feel like there's so many leaders that are more visible today than they used to be. And it's true, we are more connected, and it is an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity for every leader to be seen and to be heard and to have a voice and to share their journey. It wasn't happening that much 3 years ago, if you think about it. Leadership positions can be really lonely, right? And not always we can share what we're going through as a leader. Especially if we think about big organizations or share our opinions. And now we all suddenly have a voice and a platform where to voice it. And I think I've seen this trend, and I think it will just become bigger and bigger. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing because leaders have a lot to share from everyday experiences. They have so much to share in terms of insights and opinions that we can learn from. And I think they should. They absolutely should.
I mean, within the startup space as well, do you think that that is something that could potentially help a founder? They might not necessarily have to publish in public, but just sort of that, I don't know, sharing their journey as they go through that. Because I know a trend that I've seen that's happening is like build in public. So people launch and they build it and they're communicating all the time about each and every step. Do you think that's kind of part of that leadership development journey, as well as getting people to get interested in your product?
Absolutely. And I think it's tricky because not every leader is ready for it, especially if you think about technical founders. They're builders. They like to be in their dark coding room where they're in their rabbit hole building and having fun this way. They don't usually like to be seen. But if they could take the opportunity to follow that trend, I think they could definitely benefit from that. I know it's not for everyone, and I'm not saying that every technical founder should do it, but I think it's an opportunity to get out there faster, perhaps acquire customers faster, fail faster as well. We want to fail fast. The more feedback we get from our end customers, the faster we understand if we need to pivot, if we need to stop there and build something new. So I think it's definitely new as a trend, but I see it as an opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think reflecting as a leadership development specialist, I think, that one of the things I teach is around the digital tools. Leverage the digital tools that you have to share your story, right? So however you want to do that. And I think, potentially there's an opportunity there for technical founders to find a mode that suits them. So they might not have to, be on camera and share, but they could do a podcast about this is what we were working on this week and this is what we found out, because you can do it in lots of different ways. There's lots of opportunities to do that. And I guess it kind of relates back to those sales skills that you mentioned, that capacity to tell the story, get people interested. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for people, and, help them develop that skill alongside all the business stuff. Wonderful. Well, we're nearly at the end here. We're nearly at the end, but we've got our final final question. But before I ask the final question, I just wanted to say happy birthday, because it's today, isn't it? Happy birthday. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your birthday with us at the Still Loading podcast. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and enjoy yourself in Rome. So the final question is, what are the 3 top tips for leaders of the digital age that from your point of view, what are your 3 top tips for people?
Surround yourself with the right people from the very early beginning. Never stop growing. Don't underestimate the power of growth, of internal and personal growth. Because I see a lot of leaders ingrained in their businesses and in love with their products, and they forget about themselves. And we can go through, take care of themselves. That would be the next one. I talk to a lot of founders that are extremely busy, that are giving all they have to building the business that they believe in, which sometimes leads to overworking and mental health fragilities. So I would definitely suggest take care of yourself before you go all into the business, and be aware of where you are in the journey. And I think that would be the biggest takeaway, I think, for me. I can go on talking about this for hours. And I'm thinking about a leader that I recently talked to, who said, I have 3 weeks runaway, and I could clearly see, the distress in his face. But he said, you know what? I'm still here, and I will take it forward, and it's going to happen. And I felt so helpless. I didn't know how to actually help him in that position. All I could do is check with him in a few weeks, and he was actually fine. It's like, no, we got the funding, we are fine. But in that moment, in those moments, I realized how fragile a person can be, because they carry the responsibility, the judgment, everything that comes with it in that specific situation, because you're on a verge, you're constantly, as a startup founder, you're constantly on the verge of failing. Is this going to work? Is this not? Is this going to work? Is this not? Right? And they invest so much into it, including their health. Yeah. And it's fascinating and scary to watch at the same time. So take care of yourselves, take care of your mental health, don't overwork. Easier said than done, but that would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Monika. Fantastic advice. And yeah, please do, everybody, take care of yourselves, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. We are going to be going into winter, which is always a bit of a tricky time. So everyone, do take care of yourself. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute delight, and it's been great to get to know you and understand a bit more about the work that you do. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
LinkedIn is probably the best way. Yep. I live on LinkedIn, like I used to say. Always connected, networking with people. I treat it as an open place filled with like-minded people, where you just walk in and start a conversation. So please come to LinkedIn, come to my profile and start a conversation. I would love to hear from you.
Brilliant. And I'll put the links down in the description box below to Monika's profile on LinkedIn, and also I'll be sharing the link to the podcast episode I mentioned and any other things that we talked about today. But thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your birthday, Monika.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.